we don't know yet, but there's something horrific has happened in a mosque where people were sheltering overnight, some major event. We're talking about certainly 20 dead, but maybe many more injured, and plenty more atrocities being committed. I think that is the right term. And I'm very frightened, actually. I think the best we can do is, to be honest, to pray for everybody in Gaza, in Israel, in Iran, in Lebanon, in Beirut. I mean, it's you were talking about war just now.
Yeah, yeah.
We must have a ceasefire all round. I mean, this can go into, tomorrow is the anniversary of the terrible events of October the 7th. And you can see this going now into an appalling regional war with hundreds of thousands killed very, very easily from here.
Can you foresee a military solution to what's going on at the moment? Any resolution?
Well, I suppose. I mean, I think it is fair to say that America is on the side of Israel. It supplied the arms. Britain is also on the side of Israel. We're supplying the intelligence. So the major military powers in the world on the side of Israel. Israel has a massive military, and its own armed forces are exceptionally well equipped. So Israel has a massive military advantage. But military victory is not a solution in the end to anything at all. I mean, as we look back to the formation of Hezbollah, it came out of an invasion by Israel of South Lebanon, and it emerged to protect the Shia people of South Lebanon. And the idea that the massacres going on in Gaza are going to bring peace to that region is just nonsense. And by the way, we failed to mention what's happening in the West Bank, where Israeli airstrike hit a cafe 3 days ago and slaughtered 20 people. It is a terrifying moment, and I do not understand why. I mean, we heard Macron, the French leader, say he's going to stop arms sales, although I'm not sure he's going to go through with it. He got a earful from Netanyahu in response. And I don't know why we're still supplying arms to Israel. We've got to send the strongest message that this must stop.
Are there any circumstances in which Britain would support an international effort to at least lessen, if not eliminate entirely, military support to Israel? Are there any circumstances at all?
Well, I've already said that we're working closely with the international community. The negotiations and the conversations that are happening are iterative. They are ongoing. We will do everything we can to bring to bear the pressure that can lead to de-escalation, a ceasefire, and then the space for a negotiated way forward. All of these issues are to be negotiated and discussed between international allies, and that's exactly how it should be.
Do you understand why some people listening to this might just feel that we are just continuing to commit Einstein's definition of insanity, which is that you and other Western leaders, including Biden, keep doing the same thing, which is telling Israel to exercise restraint, Netanyahu to exercise restraint. They don't do it. We keep that cycle going because all the time, America in particular, but the UK as well, continues to supply the weapons unabated. And until that changes, Israel will just do what Israel's going to do.
Well, there's two aspects to that. Are the public frustrated? Yes. Is the government frustrated? Yes, of course we are, because we are human beings too. We want an end to this peace and this war, and we believe that the only way to have to end the war is to de-escalate and move to a ceasefire. So of course we share the aspirations of everyone that is frustrated, and we share the frustrations.
So maybe we should stop supporting the military.
The second point is that we have applied domestic and international law to our trading relationships, including arms, with Israel. And you've seen us act in a way that upholds international law and domestic law in that. So you can't say that we haven't done anything, because we have done things in recent weeks which have urged restraint and changed the nature of our trading relationship with Israel with regards to this.
The possibility, of course, of a retaliatory strike from Israel to Iran, is that something that the UK should be actively militarily supporting?
Well, obviously, Britain is trying hard to de-escalate what is going on in the Middle East and to move as swiftly as possible to the chance for a political discourse. That is going to be the end when the guns are silent, and we have to hope that out of this appalling catastrophe, real political progress can be made, not least on the back of the Abraham Accords. But to your question directly, Israel has the right of self-defense. Iran, directly from their own country and through their proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis in Yemen, is attacking Israel, and Israel has the right of self-defense.
1,100 dead since towards the end of September in Lebanon from Israeli attacks. Obviously, we can't know exactly who has been killed, but there's no doubt that plenty of civilians have. Do you think that, with regards to, let's just take Lebanon, Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu's government is acting proportionately?
Well, there is no question that they have the right of self-defense over the border in Lebanon. What you have here is something that no democratic government or undemocratic government would ever tolerate. You've got a proscribed terrorist organization lobbing rockets and shells into northern Israel, causing up to 60,000 people to have to flee from their homes and their villages. And the Israelis quite rightly say that this is an intolerable incursion into their territory, and they must take action. The right answer is for Hezbollah to pull back behind the Litani River in accordance with the United Nations Security Council resolution, but also for Iran to stop funding and arming these proxies like Hezbollah, which are a cancer in Lebanon.
Do you think that, what do you make of the suggestion from President Macron that the West and Europe should at least lessen, if not stop, military support to Israel if they are not willing, Benjamin Netanyahu's government is not willing to listen to Western requests for restraint?
Well, the Netanyahu government has to decide what is in the best interests of defending their people. But I think it would be an extraordinary business for France to impose an arms embargo, since the French and the British and the Americans were using their own militaries and their own weapons to defend Israel from the first Iranian attack, and to a large part from the second Iranian attack, which took place just a few days ago. So to impose an arms embargo on a country that is a close ally, which is beset by enemies determined to wipe it out, dealing with numerous terrorist forces, which France too recognises as a terrorist force, strikes me as being a somewhat unwise thing to do.
We're going to talk now as well to Imran Riza, who's the UN humanitarian coordinator for Lebanon. Mr. Riza, thanks so much for joining us on the show this morning. Could you just sketch out for our listeners and viewers the scale of the humanitarian crisis enveloping the country?
I think a lot of what your correspondent just said is really, really spot on in terms of the situation. I think what I would emphasize is that what we've seen over the last 10 weeks, 2 days, has been this incredible escalation, a devastating escalation. So, 2 weeks ago, we had maybe 110,000 people displaced in the country, meaning over the whole year, since this started on the 8th of October, about 110,000 displaced. In the last 2 weeks, the number has gone to well over 500,000 and well over 1 million affected and displaced people. So it's a massive, massive humanitarian catastrophe that we're seeing right now, with a huge scale of displacement, as well as a great deal of fatalities and casualties in it. We have now reached 2,000, and the majority seem to be certainly civilians, as your correspondent was also saying.
In terms of what happens now, I mean, is there anything that the West, in particular, the wider international community, could do on the humanitarian stage alone? Let's leave aside the military element for a moment. Is there anything that the wider international community could do to assist those people?
Before I get to that, I mean, the key thing is a ceasefire, right? Yes. What we all want is a ceasefire in this, and then to have that move to something sustainable, the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. Also, before I get to the assistance and the aid that's needed, we also need respect of international humanitarian law. Your correspondence was talking about a new normal, which is really dangerous. It's really, really extremely worrying if people are going to accept this. It's the 75th year of the Geneva Conventions, and Geneva Conventions were about rules of war, about how you protect civilians and how you ensure that that frontline workers, that health workers, and that whole community that's trying to assist people in a war is allowed to function. And what we're seeing are attacks on that as well as civilian infrastructure. Now, in terms of assistance, yes, we launched an appeal a couple of days ago, a flash appeal for $426 million. We need a great deal of resources. We were extremely under-resourced before this escalation in the last 2 weeks. So yes, that is the appeal that's out there right now.
And in terms of getting that ceasefire, Mr. Riza, we don't seem to be any closer. We've been talking about it for months after month. And yet every week that goes by, every day that goes by, it feels as if it is getting more distant, not closer.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid that seems to be what we're seeing, and that's what is also, I think, heightening the fear and anxiety of people over here. I mean, every day, people sort of, first of all, they don't sleep, right? With the level of strikes that are happening, and what happened last night was more than the night before, which was more than the night before that. But one of the first things most of us do in the morning is check on colleagues, because so many of our Lebanese colleagues are constantly moving and dealing with their relatives who have either lost their lives or got injured or are displaced. So it is a day-by-day sort of tragedy of that scale.
Imran Riza there, the UN humanitarian coordinator for Lebanon. Grateful to